everyone. Good evening. All right, good evening. So, we are live on three platforms. If you are joining me on any of those three platforms tonight, hello. Hello, good evening. And I'm stuck. Okay, sorry about that awkward and strange glitch there, YouTube, where I looked a little crazy for a moment. So anyway, thank you for joining me this evening, and just waiting 1 second for Insta to tell people that I am live. Okay. And tonight I am going to be speaking about God's deliverance and God's timing and what the Lord has done for y'all. I'm sorry on Insta, y'all. I did not angle you down, so you are looking at the top of my background. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about and I don't know why my camera, the color in my screen is not good here. But anyway, we're going to be talking about God's goodness, God's timing, God's deliverance, what the Lord has done for my family, and in particular, my son. So I'm going to be telling you the story of my son and something that happened now. I'm sorry, y'all, on YouTube. It's just lagging. Bear with me. Something that happened to us about 2 years ago now. So 2 years ago now. Okay. And so as I have said on other lives, I will be telling, I've had some, there we go, get the color a little bit better there. I've had some amazing things happen in my life, and I'm going to be telling some of my stories. So some nights I'll speak on something inspirational. Some nights I may speak on something financial. And some nights I'm just going to be telling like my story. And so this is, even though it happened to my son, it's because I'm his mom. It's part of our family story. And so I'm a Christian, and I did not get saved until I was 34 years old. And I do not believe in going out there and telling everybody that you should be a Christian. You should be a Christian. Shame on you if you're not a Christian. I don't believe in that. But I believe that when people watch you and they watch your walk and they watch your life, and you tell them what gives you your strength and your fortitude, that is the best way to spread Christianity, share Christianity, and kind of show what it's all about. And then, people have free choice, free will to decide to look into it further or not. So anyway, this particular situation happened. So my husband's grandmother passed away. So we get a call that my husband's grandmother, and honestly, I feel terrible saying this, but I can't remember if we got the call that she had passed or that she was getting ready to pass. It was one or the other, but I believe she had passed at this point. And we were going to go to California for the funeral. And we live in Texas. And so we had not planned on going across the country. And so I got whenever I travel across the country with all my kids, I get very nervous and anxious when it's leading up to the time to go. And I was even more so this time because it was a sudden trip, and there wasn't I hadn't planned on going. So there wasn't any preparation. It was just kind of, let's pack up and go. And my son was very upset at the time. My oldest son was very upset because he had been working very hard at football, and he was trying to obtain a D1 scholarship. And it was heading up to his playoffs. His playoffs were getting ready to start. And so he was like, I'm going to miss a game or more than one game. I think no, it was just going to be like one game that he was going to miss, or maybe two games possibly. But, he was like, that I don't know if I'll be benched or, if I'll be, what's going to happen if I'm not there for the game. And I worked all year for the playoffs and, we've made it. And now you're taking me to California. But anyway, it didn't matter because, I was taking him to California. Now, apparently, I'm a very, very involved mother. I'm one of those mothers where if my kids tell me something's wrong, I'm like, let's get on it immediately. Let's see what's wrong. Let's pray. Let me anoint you. Do we need to go see a doctor? I'm very on top of that kind of thing. Okay. But like I said, uh, my husband's grandmother had passed. She was a very spiritual woman, kind of a matriarch of the family because his grandfather had passed some time ago. And I was upset, and I was also nervous about packing and going to California unprepared and not ready. And so apparently, as the story was told to me, my son said to me at some point, Mom, I don't feel well. Now, to know this about my oldest son, like I said, for him to say he's an athlete, very, very hard worker, does not complain. This kid will sweat and sweat and sweat and work and lift and never miss a gym day, very healthy eater, all of that. So he does not complain. So, and he knows how I am. So for him to actually physically tell me he doesn't feel well means that he's very sick. Okay. Well, somehow in my preparation, apparently I was told to me at a later point that he told me by the refrigerator while I was getting ready, Mom, I don't feel well. And I didn't hear him. I have no memory of this at all. So it just by chance, and let me tell you how God works and God's timing. So my best friend's kiddos were with us at the time. And I asked her, is it okay with you if we take your kiddos with us to California? So the kids have, because it's an unexpected trip. So the kids have, kind of someone to hang out with and play with while we're there. And so she said, okay. And this is my best friends for years. Okay. So she said, okay. And we had, at the time, we had a Ford Transit XLT 350, which is basically a bus. And so we have plenty of room for everybody's luggage and for all our passengers. And so our huge group gathers up, gets in the van, and we head on to California. So we're driving, we're like halfway to California. And, we're stopping along the way because we've got younger kiddos in the car and, for bathroom breaks. And I'll tell people, go to the bathroom now. I don't know when the next time we'll be stopping is. And it occurred to me after about halfway point to California, I haven't seen my oldest son. I haven't seen him get out of the car. I haven't seen him, and he's a big kid. He needs to stretch his bones and everything. And go to the bathroom, and he's very upbeat, and so I was like, hey, I haven't seen him, what's going on? And I'll never forget this. I get up, I think I was driving, I get up, I go to the back of my van, and I get halfway to him, and I can feel the heat. I can feel the heat radiating off of his body. I can feel his body heat. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, what's wrong? And this kid it was at nighttime. We are at this particular rest stop we always stop at. It is in literally the middle of nowhere. It is literally in the middle of nowhere. I think it's in Arizona, but it's not near any kind of city, or it might be New Mexico. I don't remember where it is. But anyway, it is literally in the middle of nowhere, kind of shady, very isolated. And my kid is bright red, and he's my skin complexion, and he's beet red. Heat is radiating off of him. He's not looking good at all. and he's got bumps all over his face and everything. He's got these bumps all over his body. And I said, "What is going on?" And he said, "Mom, I told you I didn't feel good." And like, I'm like, "I didn't hear you say you didn't feel good." Like we wouldn't have we wouldn't have gone, or, so my mind is just like going, it's like pulsating. I don't know what to do. My kid is deathly sick. I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's nighttime. And we're like, should we keep on going to California, or should we turn around and go back to Texas? So we're like at the midway point. So we could go back home to Texas, to Children's Hospital, or we could keep on going to California. I'm not stopping at any rinky dink hospital along the way. And I know that would have probably made more sense to people, but I was like, no, like the Lord was clear with me, like, go to California. So, um, you know, I get him drinks, keep him hydrated. And then I notice on his knee that he has about this big, he's got a huge area where his whole knee is like pieces of it are missing and stuff. And I'm like, and it's horribly infected because apparently he had an injury. He didn't tell anybody about it. He didn't treat it. And then he picked at it because it probably was starting to heal, and it started itching. He picked at it, and now it's, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So now I'm driving like a maniac to get to California. I'm praying, I'm fasting, I'm driving. I'm terrified. I'm actually legitimately, for the first time in my life, concerned about my son, one of my children, living or dying. But I just knew not to trust a hospital. You know, I knew that he needed expert medical care. Um, so we make it to California. I drop everyone off at our destination, and I take my son to Children's Hospital in downtown Los Angeles. And we get in there. I put him in a wheelchair. I take him up to the front. They see him and they're like, yeah, get a doctor. So they get a doctor. We go back. We're immediately seen by the head of pediatrics. And he examines him and he says, this young man is very sick. He takes blood work. And he said, my gosh. He said, you have scarlet fever. And I said, what? I said, like the Velveteen Rabbit, like that book that I read when I was little, the Velveteen Rabbit, who, the little kid had scarlet fever and died or whatever. I said, like that. I don't know if the little kid died, but I believe the little kid died in that book. And I said, like that? And he said, yes. And he calls in all the oh gosh, I can't remember the name of them, but the doctors in training, the residents. He calls all the residents and he says, I want you all to see this. This is scarlet fever. We don't see this anymore very often. And so they all come and look and take notes and everything. And so he said, we're going to give him they said, we're going to keep him here for X amount of hours. And then we're going to decide whether or not to admit him. And I'm going to give him a shot of blah, 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 blah. And so it was like big, thick, long needle full of a white substance. I've never seen it before in my life. And he said, this will kill anything. And so now I don't even think I mentioned his knee at that time. Okay. Because we're all caught up in the whole scarlet fever thing. And my son's temperature at that point was like 104, 105, something like that. And so he gives him this shot. My son is all but lethargic. And they observe him, and I can't remember how long they observed him for. He puts him on medication, and he said, I think he said he'll be fine with this shot that I gave him. I administered to him. And then, they tell you what they always tell you: if symptoms keep on, and they don't subside, within X amount of time or whatever, then, bring him back. Um, so I'm leaving the hospital. He's still very sick, but I'm trusting, I'm thinking he's going to get better. Thank God. I knew they'd know what to do here, and, whatever. And so I leave with my son, and we go back to where we're staying. The next day is grandmother's funeral. During the funeral, now I've been fasting and praying and scared to death so badly for my son that during the funeral I actually was in the front row nodding off, like literally like that. Like, oh gosh, horrible, horrible, so embarrassing. But I crashed. I had reached a point, driven to California. I just crashed. I reached a point where I can't anymore. And so my son, I checked in on him that morning, and I said, "How are you doing?" And he said, you know. But I'm thinking, the doctor had said, give it 24 hours, give the shot 24 hours to take effect. So I'm thinking the fact that he's not feeling better is not that, not that much of a big deal. It's going to take its effect during the day. And then he actually got up out of bed and kind of walked to the church because he wanted to. Now, when I say walk to the church, where he's staying right like 20 feet from the church where we were staying. And so he walks into the church because he wants to pay his respects to his grandmother. And he stayed there a little bit, and then he had to go back to bed. Okay. And so he's not eating. I get him to drink a little bit. But I'm not surprised at that either because he's not feeling well. And so I think later on that day, I think I went to run a couple of errands or something like that. And apparently my kids, so I think I was actually in shock. I think I went into shock, and I've never been in shock before. But apparently while I was out running errands, my kids called me and said, "Mom, Todd said he needs to go back to the hospital," or something to that effect. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stop by the nail shop and get my nails done. And this is not who I am at all whatsoever. Like, if my child said I need to go back to the hospital, 24 hours or not, I'm calling an ambulance, we're rushing to the hospital. But I was like, I'm going to go get my nails done. And my kids were like, because they know how I am. So looking back on this, I think I was actually in shock. Like, I think I knew in my heart that my son, in my subconscious, I think I knew that my son was deathly ill, and I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to handle it. I think I went into shock, and I think I was just walking around on autopilot because I remember I was in Walmart and I'm calling my kids like, "Does anybody need new underwear?" And my kids are like, "Mom, you need to come back and take Todd to the hospital." And it just like was not registering. So I get back, and they even called my mother-in-law, and they were like, "Grandma, something's wrong with Mom. She's not, she's not acting right. Can you ask her to come take Todd to the hospital?" So I get back and I go and check on my son. And it was like almost like I did not want to go in the room to check on him. Like, I almost did not. Oh my gosh, did not want to go in the room to check on him. And anyway, I go and check on my son, and he's laying in bed, and he looks up to me and he whispers, "I think I'm going to die." My son said to me, "I think I'm going to die." And I just stood there, And then, praise God, I snapped out of it, jumped up, put him in the car, rushed to the hospital. We get back to the hospital. I'm hysterical. I'm screaming. They take him back immediately. I think the same head of pediatrics was there, who was there before. And he calls up and he says, "I need this child admitted to ICU immediately." Oh my gosh. He said ICU. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so apparently this huge chunk of his knee that he injured playing football that I told y'all about earlier in the story, he got infected and he developed, so now he's got scarlet fever and a double staph infection. His heart rate is unstable. They cannot stabilize it. They cannot stabilize his blood pressure. Um, he has a fever of 105. I don't know. His organs are starting to shut down. And I'm like, not my baby. Not my baby. And so he's put in ICU, and I don't remember everything. Now, mind you, I've got my girlfriend's children with me on this trip. And let me just tell you how God works. So, my husband at this point has to go back to work because nobody planned on being in California for any period of time. We were going there, we were going to the funeral, we were going back home, and then 2 weeks later, we were going to come back to California for Christmas. It was like 2 or 3 weeks later, we were going to come back to California for Christmas. But in the 2 to 3 week interim, my husband has to be back at work. You know, we've got my daughter had to go back to Texas. My husband has to go back to Texas. Um, you know, life needed to continue to go on. So my husband has to buy a um, plane ticket to go back to California, to go back to Texas. My daughter went with him. I'm assuming she went with him. I don't even know. But anyway, she left too, my oldest daughter. And so I'm in California and I've got a child in ICU and I've got in another location clear across about an hour away. And if y'all live in California, you know what an hour away is in gas and time on California roads. It is not an hour. Okay. An hour away in the mountains, I've got my kids, my girlfriend's kids. I have to feed them. I have to buy clothes. Like we were not prepared at all. None of us are prepared to be in California. And my son's in ICU, and I've got to drive back and forth every day so that I'm spending time with the kids, and I'm spending time with my son, and I'm doing all this driving, and I'm praying, and I'm consumed with worry and foreboding. But the point is, let me tell you, God's timing is perfect because I believe with everything in me 1000% that California was the place that I was meant to be. And I'm sorry, y'all, I have like a baggage, okay? And it's driving me crazy. I can't take it anymore. And I believe with everything in me, I really do, that if I had been here in Texas, my son would not have lived. I believe that with everything in me. So, meanwhile, at the hospital, my son is hooked up to all kinds of things, all kinds of equipment. They cannot get him stabilized. There's the head. So, I'm no longer under the head of pediatrics. There was actually a traveling specialist, and I don't remember what her title was, but she was the top, whatever it is that she was, the entire western half of the country. And she happened to be in the area. They brought her in as a consult for my son, and then some other specialists as well. And that's who was working on him. Anyway, they told me at one point that he had to be on an antibiotic that they did not even have at Children's Hospital. So what kind of antibiotic is it? What kind of powerful stuff is it that my son had to be put on that they didn't even carry at the hospital? He said, oh, we got to send out for this. And I felt like he got the care, and the specialist happened to be there, and we happened to be there, and all of it. And we had my best friend's children that were there to take care of my kids, so my kids weren't sitting and freaking out about their brother in ICU. And I just felt like the Lord he saw it, he knew it, he allowed it to occur, and he made all the provision for it before it occurred. And let me tell you about testing. Okay, so there comes a day they cannot get him stabilized. They can't get him stabilized. There comes a day, I don't know if it was morning or night, when the head specialist comes in. Now, mind you, everybody's in scrubs and everything. Um, everything has to be, you know, he can't be exposed to any kind of germs. His skin has fallen off of his body. His skin fell off of his body, y'all. Now, when I say his skin fell off of his body, I don't mean like, oh, a little sloughing, a little dead skin. You go like this and you get a little dead skin fall off. I mean, his skin fell off in strips off of his body. And I said, what in the world? And the doctor said he boiled. He literally boiled. And so he said, when your body reaches a certain point of, fever, he said, your skin basically boils off. Say what? The doctors are telling me he's going to have, his central nervous system was being attacked. He was going to have severe problems. They were telling me that he sustained brain damage. Okay. And then a little while later, specialist comes in, she takes me outside, shuts the door, she holds my hands, and she says to me, I need you to call your husband. And I need you to call any other family members, dear. Now, this must have been in the evening. I need you to call your husband. I need you to call any other family members, dear. She said, because your son is not going to make it through the night. Let me tell you something. The Lord says in the Bible that he will not give you more than you can handle. It says it very clearly. I will not give you more than you can handle. I couldn't handle that. I could not handle that. And I understand that there is many a mother who has lost their child. Many a mother who has lost their child. And there would be nothing special about me losing my child. I would be joining a horrific group. But I also know that he says he won't give you more than you can handle. And it's not that that could not have happened, but that was more than I could handle at that time. I am not at home. I'm not with my husband or support system. I don't have any money. I don't have any money. We were not prepared to live in California. I'm now living in California. I've been in California now for like a week and a half, 2 weeks or something. I'm living in California. We didn't have clothes. I'm driving. I'm spending hundreds of dollars in gas. I'm having to feed, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 children, plus myself, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I am not ready for this. I'm not ready. I am not ready. Could not handle more. And so she tells me this, and she's prepared, they're around me. I don't know, her and other people. I don't know who was there. They're around me to catch me or whatever. And I just stood there and I looked at her. And she said, Mrs. Tillis, did you hear what I told you? And I said, yes. And she's looking at me and she said, I need you to make those phone calls now. And I said, oh, I don't need to call anybody. And she said, I understand you're in shock. And so she stops talking to me and she calls in psychiatry. Okay. And so a psychiatrist comes up on the floor to speak with me. And, she's like trying to, they're thinking I'm in shock, right? Because I'm just standing there. And actually what I was doing was I was talking to the Lord. I was asking the Lord, is my son going to die? Are you going to call my son home to you? That's why I was asking the Lord, because I don't care who you are. I don't care what your title is. It doesn't matter. What matters is what God says. That's the final say. He's in charge. So I was asking the Lord, are you going to call my son home? Let me know something. Let me know. Do I need to make these phone calls that this woman is telling me to make? No. I felt a perfect peace. I felt a perfect peace come over me. And I knew that my son was going to live. I knew that he was going to live. A perfect peace, a peace that only God can give. And I knew my son was going to live. And so the staff at the hospital is very concerned. She's in shock. She's not functioning. Do we have the number of the husband? Do we have this? Do we have that? They didn't have anything. And because I hadn't even at this point, this is days in, for whatever reason, I hadn't even registered him. I had not registered him yet with, they had called me or whatever, but the doctors were like, she's not in the proper shape to go through registration. So my son is here receiving all of this fabulous care. I haven't even registered with the hospital yet. They don't even have our information. And they've got his name and they've got my phone number and whatever, but they have the basic information. But they don't have anything else. They don't have our insurance. They have nothing. Okay. And yet he's in ICU getting all this treatment. And so, she's telling me all this. And I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I am asking you to not only deliver my son, I am asking you to deliver him without any complications. I want my son to be restored. I said, Lord, I know you can do it. I know it's within your ability. I don't know if it's within your will, but I know it's within your ability. Night came and went, and my son was alive the next morning. He was alive the next morning. He went through several more days where he was not stabilized. He was not speaking. He couldn't eat, couldn't drink. He had tubes coming in and out of every orifice. But my son was alive. My son lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks. 20 pounds in 2 weeks. Let me tell you something. He lived. He is alive today. Now, he lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks. All the skin on his body fell off. It started on his head, and the doctor said his skin is going to fall off all over his body. He says private parts everywhere. All over his body. It's going to start on his head, and it's going to systematically work its way down his body and fall off. And that's what it did. And he would have strips of skin all over the bed, the hospital bed. They would just fall off and be lying all over the bed. This did not help his recuperation, strips of skin falling off. And slowly but surely, he was able to talk again. Slowly but surely, he was able to start drinking again. Slowly but surely, he was able to start on slightly solid foods again. Slowly but surely, because my son is a fighter, he started trying to sit up. Okay, now he had problems with his nervous system. His nervous system was blown out. It had to restart again. And the restarting of your nervous system is extremely, excruciatingly painful. And I would be in the hospital with him and I would hear him yell and scream. And I would say, honey, do you want this? Do you want that? Can I do this for you? And he'd yell at me because he was in so much pain day and night. But he didn't have any brain damage. And the doctor said it's basically impossible to have a fever as high as he did and not have any brain damage. He did not sustain any brain damage. He did not sustain long-term nervous system problems. He had nervous system problems for several months, but they were not forever. He cannot gain weight. He is not able to gain weight. It changed his physiology. What he went through changed his physiology. And he's not 100% the same that he was physically. But you know what? It don't matter. I have my baby boy. I have my baby boy. And I believe the excellent care that they gave him and the constant round the clock, these nurses were fabulous. These doctors were fabulous. They considered him to be a miracle case. And let me tell you, the Lord provided while we were out in California. Like I said, we had left to go to a funeral for a turnaround funeral trip to California. I was in California for a month. Okay. Didn't have money, didn't have clothes. I've got my best friend's kids with me that I've got to feed and care for. I've got gas. I'm driving from downtown LA to the valley back and forth multiple times a day. Let me tell you, God provided. God provided. You cannot tell me that God in heaven is not on his throne. And I believe with everything in me, had I not been a believer, had I not trusted in him, I believe that that was a test when that doctor told me that my son was not going to live through the night. I believe that that was a test because I believe in my heart of hearts that if I had believed what that doctor told me, if I had believed that doctor when she told me that my son was not going to live through the night, I believe that if I had believed what the doctor had said, if I hadn't asked God, what do you say? Not what does this woman say, but what do you say? What is your answer? What is your final answer? And I will accept what your answer is. I can handle it if I know it's coming from you. I believe if I had not asked him instead of believing in the doctor, that he would have allowed my son to pass. But because I recognized him as the Alpha and the Omega, I recognized him as the creator of my son. No one knows my son like the maker of him does. No one knows when my son is going to be born. Nobody knows the day my son is going to draw his last breath except God. So why would I ask anybody to tell me? I don't need anybody else to tell me when my son is going to die. God is in charge of that. I don't need a man to tell me what's going to happen with my child. I believe that my faith, my unwavering faith, because my faith was undefeated, unwavering. Like, what is the word, God? What is the word? And let me tell you, I also believe through my faith and by telling that doctor, I said, I respect you, ma'am. I respect your position. I respect your authority. But I am a believer in God, and only God can take the life of my child. Only God can. So the Lord has not let me know that my son's life is going to end. Therefore, I don't need to call my husband. I don't need to call my family. I don't need to call anybody. I don't need to do anything, but just keep on doing what I'm doing. And that's prayer. And I believe that through my faith that they saw something. I have to believe that they saw something. Like, this woman did not bat an eye when we told her that her son was going to pass tonight. I did not bat an eye, was completely unconcerned. And let me tell you, he missed his first playoff game, and his team dedicated the game to him. It was so beautiful. I love being from a small town. His team dedicated the game to him, and he was crying buckets of tears because he couldn't be there. And but let me tell you something. I'm about to wrap this up. He was finally released. You know, he couldn't really walk, or he couldn't really do anything. He really couldn't do anything because he didn't have any strength or energy, and his skin was falling off. He had to walk around with a Walmart bag at all times because chunks of his skin would just fall off. They would just fall off. And he would put on clothes and his skin would fall off. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, literally, his skin would peel off in strips off of his body. And then, of course, there was the pain because there's the skin, the dermis and the epidermis, and, the skin is exposed that should not be exposed. And so everything was painful to him that touched him, bathing, sitting down, laying down, putting on clothing. Let me tell you, but he was alive. I want to tell you something. By the time we left Children's Hospital, and then we stayed an extra week after he was discharged. I don't know how long he was at Children's Hospital, but we stayed in California an extra week after he was discharged in case there was something else that happened or he had a, reoccurrence of something. And we stayed there an extra week, and then we drove back home. I want to tell you 2 weeks later, my son played in the playoffs. He played in the playoffs in Cowboy Stadium. He played in the playoffs in Cowboy Stadium. Told he was going to die playing in the playoffs in Cowboy Stadium. Should he have played? No, he shouldn't. Am I a bad mom for letting him play? I probably am, but his heart, he had been through so much. He had been through so much pain. He had been through so much suffering. He had gone through so much, and the only thing he wanted to do was play in that game. And I could not tell him no. He vomited throughout the whole game. But he was okay. The doctors were right there with him. They were watching him, observing him. They said he's fine. They just said it's a little too much physical, a little too much strain on your body. And they would sit him down and he would take breaks or whatever. But he played. And I think and he's now in college, got his D1 scholarship. He's now in college playing football. But I think no matter what game he ever plays, I don't think any game will ever be as sweet to him as the last playoff game that he was able to play in high school, having just come from near death and then being in Cowboy Stadium. I don't think any game will ever be as precious to him as that game. So I say all this to say, and to me, this is one of my favorite stories from being saved. I say all this to say that we have to pray for our children. The Bible says pray without ceasing. We have to be in a position, because if I had not had a relationship with God, right? If this had happened to my son and I had not had an established relationship with God, if I didn't know God, if I wasn't saved, if I didn't have an established open line of communication with God, I would not have been able to fast for my son. I would not have been able to pray for my son. I would not have been able to ask the Lord when I'm in the middle of the desert and my son is burning up. Should I go back to Texas or should I go on to California? What should I do? I would not have been able to hear him. I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have just been in a state of confusion. I believe if I had not had that relationship with the Lord, if the doctor had told me your son's not going to make it through the night, what would I have done? I would have had no belief. My immediate reaction would have been that of panic, chaos, heartbreak, overwhelming lack of peace. And I wouldn't have known what to do. I wouldn't have known to ask the Lord, what is your will? Your will be done. Thy will be done. What is your will? Is it your will to take him? Because let me tell you, if that had been his will, I would have had peace with that. I would have had peace with that. I would have said, God loves him even more than me. Thank you, God, for giving me all these years with this precious human being. Thank you for giving me the honor of being able to be his mother, of being able to care for him, to love him, to hold him, to kiss him, to touch him. Thank you. And I would have been at peace with that. Did I want to lose him? No, of course I didn't want to lose him. But I would have been able to handle it if that's what God had told me, that that was his will to do. But I believe because I knew the Lord and I was saved, and I do my best. I do my best to serve him. I I try. I try very hard to strive to be a better Christian on a daily basis. Some days I succeed, some days I do not. But I love the Lord and I strive to be a better Christian. And I just know because I was able to talk to him and I was able to ask him what his will was, that he was able to speak back to me and he showed mercy. And mercy, please remember, is something that is undeserved. It is undeserved. I have not, I was a horrible teenager. I was a horrible child. You know, the mercy that God has shown me in my life is not deserved. It is not deserved. It is not. And the love that he has for my kids and the love and mercy that he has shown them and that he has shown me, no one can tell me there isn't a God. No one can tell me that there isn't a God in heaven and that he's not on his throne reigning. Nobody can tell me that. So anyway, the title of this live was I don't even know anymore. But I believe the Lord's timing is key in all of our lives, in all things. His timing is key. He puts us where we need to be when we need to be there. And I believe that with everything in me. You know, I believe like John's grandmother's passing was tragic. But I do not believe in my heart that they would have been able to save my son in Dallas, at Children's Hospital in Dallas. I don't believe that. And so by her passing, it put us in California where they were able to save his life. Obviously, God saved his life, but with the help of these doctors as well. And I just know that for us to be there and the timing, and I don't even know where the money came from. I don't even remember because we didn't have any money. I did not have money for all these kids and all this gas. And then I had to pay for, they made me pay for valet parking every time I went to Children's Hospital. I'm paying valet parking. I'm paying for my food. I'm paying for all these kids' food. I had to buy these kids' clothes. I had to buy my girlfriend's kids' clothes. I had to pay for their food, for her kids. I had to pay for gas. I had like crazy amounts of money. I don't even know where that money came from. I don't know where that money came from for all that. I know that for the gas for on the way home, we have a very dear friend, Charisse, who paid for our gas to go all the way home because I didn't have money to go home. I didn't have money to go home to make it home. And some beautiful people on Facebook paid for my son to get a PS4. To get a PS4. We still have that PS4. To buy a PS4. Just beautiful because he had nothing to do. He was in the hospital bed all day long. He was going crazy out of his mind. He was in so much pain. And I didn't have anything for him. And at Children's Hospital, they only have a certain amount of video game units, and it's Children's Hospital, so there's nothing but children in there. So those video game units are in high demand, and they were able to give him one for a couple days, but then he didn't have anything, and he said to me, "Mommy, I wish I had my PS4." Oh my gosh, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I just most certainly did not have $500 to go out and buy a PS4 for him at the time. And let me tell you, beautiful people on Facebook got together and donated money. And I was able to buy him a PS4 for while he was in the hospital, and then he took it home, and his other one was dying. And so it was just like, it was so beautiful. But I'm going to tell y'all, if you are not believers, I'm going to ask you to try God. I'm going to ask you to try God. Um, there is so much beauty in our lives when we do not have to depend on ourselves. This life is so wicked. It is so wicked and it is so hard. And I'm seeing people out here dying. I am seeing people out here dying all the time. I cannot tell you how many people have lost loved ones out of my Facebook friends. I know, I can't even tell you out of my Facebook friends how many people have lost loved ones suddenly in the past year. I can't even tell you how many. And so life is not guaranteed. The life of your loved ones is not guaranteed. And it is too much for you to bear. The things that happen in life right now, this is why people are committing suicide like crazy. This is why people are depressed. Because what is happening out here in this world is too much for us to bear. It is too much for us to carry on our own. We are not meant to carry these things. We are not meant to deal with the kinds of things that are going on in this world. Do you know how many people were shot in the past month? Mass shootings there were in the past. Look it up. How many mass shootings there were in the past month? We are not meant to deal with this mentally. We cannot deal with this mentally. We cannot function in a healthy manner with the kinds of things that are going on in this world. And when you have God, you can cry to God, you can talk to God, you can tell it to God, and He will take and lift that burden off of you. He will lift the burden literally off of you. And so that you can function, so that you can keep on functioning, so that you can have peace, so that you can have a measure of happiness in your life, so that you can function, because there's just too much for us to see and to deal with and to hear, and you don't know what's going to happen to you tomorrow. You can have a beautiful, lovely family today, and there could be a car accident, or you could be diagnosed with cancer, or any manner of things can happen. And just like that, your world is shattered. It's shattered. And if you are not in a position to have that happen to you, if you are not in a mental state, if you do not have the Lord to lean on, it can break you. It can break you. It can break you in half and leave you empty. So I just encourage all of you. Um, there's so much love with the Lord. There's so much love. Uh, the feeling, the feeling of love that you get from Him when He's with you, when you talk to Him, when you have quiet time with Him, when He speaks to you. It's unlike anything. A lot of people are running around here looking for certain things, and they're looking for it in money. They're looking for it in, yeah, I talk about having money because money is important. We do need money to live. But let me tell you, people are looking for their inner happiness in money. They're looking for it in a house. They're looking for it in cars. They're looking for it in clothes. They're looking for it in men. They're looking for it. And this is why people are all messed up, because they're looking for what only God can give you in physical things, in worldly things. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find it. And so I encourage you to, if you want to start a relationship with the Lord, a lot of people I know, especially for me, before I got saved, there was a lot of mystique behind God and the Lord and, relationship with Him. And it was all very, I don't know what that is and how to do it. And it's all very mysterious. And let me tell you, you can just start by talking to Him. The Lord is super approachable. He knows you. He's been watching you since the day you were born. He already knows you. So He already has a relationship with you. He's just waiting for you to initiate a relationship with Him. And you can just go somewhere quiet and you can just talk to Him, and you can just talk to Him like you would your best friend. Talk to Him like you can tell Him everything, everything. And unlike a person, He actually has a solution to whatever it is that your problem is. He actually has the solution. Um, and you can just talk to him. Just start talking and tell him, Lord, some days I tell him, Lord, I'm so tired of these children. I don't know what to do, and then I have to go back and say, Lord, thank you so much for their lives. Thank you so much for my children. I don't know what I'd do without them. Sometimes I'm mad with my husband and I'm angry and I talk to the Lord and I'm so upset with you. You sent me this man and and you can talk to him about anything, and just find a quiet place and start talking to him. That's where I always recommend. Just start talking to him. Establish a relationship with him, talking to him, and then start reading the Bible. And the Bible, let me tell y'all, people are like, oh, the Bible, let me tell y'all think like these TV shows like Yellowstone and all that stuff has drama and intrigue. Let me tell you, ain't nothing got no drama and intrigue like the Bible. The Bible is full of I was so shocked when I started reading the Bible. I was like, oh my God, these people are off the chain. Okay, the Bible it is so inspirational, but it's also so funny, but then it's also so tragic. And then it's also it's got it all. It's got everything. Like how should I dress? Or what should how should I treat my husband? Or do I need to get married? Or whatever your question, the Bible, it's in the Bible. Like everything's in there. Just start reading the Bible. It's okay if you don't even understand everything that you're reading. You just ask the Lord. That's what I did. I just asked the Lord. When I got to parts in the Bible I didn't understand, Lord, can you open my understanding as to what I'm reading so that I can understand it and what you are meaning to give me out of it? And he will open up your understanding and he will tell you what you're reading. And let me tell you, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. It's amazing. And so really that is just how simple your relationship with God can be. It can just be that simple. Getting to know him. He already knows you. You don't have to explain yourself to him. He's already watching you. So just getting to know him, having a relationship with him, and then leaning on him and learning how to pray. When you have something on your heart, you go down on your knees in prayer and you open up and you tell it all to the Lord. And guess what? You get up and you leave it. You leave it with him. You leave it with him. Cast thy cares on him because he can handle it. You cannot, but he can handle it. And this is why people get sick. A lot of people suffer from illness and they say it's stress related, and illness does come from stress. I'm going to tell you that illness comes from stress. This is something I learned, and I don't want to get too technical on you guys, but because I'm not technical or that knowledgeable myself at all. But I do know this much. What the thing behind, and I don't want to be controversial either, so please forgive me, but I'm just going to say something. The thing about stem cells is a stem cell, which comes from an infant and it can become any kind of cell in the body. And the way that it becomes any kind of cell in the body is the atmosphere or environment, the medium that it's put in. And so, that's very much how we are. When things happen, the way that the atmosphere, the situations that we put ourselves in depends on how we can handle it. And if we put everything that upsets us, everything that happens unexpectedly, everything that's traumatic, if we internalize all of that, it makes you sick. It actually legitimately makes you sick. It affects your gut and digestive system, and your gut and digestive system is responsible for so much, so much. And as far as disease and health and all of that goes. And that's why your digestive system is really important. But anyway, point being is, if you internalize everything, it will make you sick. If it makes you sick, it manifests in stress and stress-related diseases. When you are able to pray, you take what's upsetting you, what is weighing down on you, and you give it to the Lord. And then you walk away and you feel this lightness. You just feel this peace because you're no longer taking all the responsibility. You're no longer taking the weight and the responsibility of things. Because think about it. Can you change outcomes of anything or anybody? No, you can't. You can't change the outcome. I can't. I love my husband. I've known my husband for 20 plus years. I cannot change how that man thinks. I cannot change how that man thinks. I can maybe somewhat influence him, but I can't change what he does. He is a grown man with a mind of his own. He's going to do what he sees fit to do. And so you can't change people, but you can change yourself, right? And you can change the way you respond to people. You can change the way you respond to situations. And so that's what prayer helps you to do. It helps you take it off of you, give it to the Lord. And now you're not walking around carrying the burden of this stress or that stress or how this person acts or behaves or what happens in this situation. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And he will also, tomorrow, I will tell the story of my mother's car accident. He will also forewarn you of things to come and give you the opportunity sometimes through prayer to change the outcome of situations. So, anyway, thank you for joining me tonight. And I appreciate all of you. Love you. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. Good night. All right. Goodbye, y'all. Goodbye. So we are okay. And good night.